What's up again, everybody? We're back, we're better than ever, and we're going to talk about the most essential cards in the Warrior class. This is in Welcome to Rathe. There are 4 classes. We've covered Brute, we've covered Guardian, we've covered Ninja, and now it's time to talk about Warrior, which means I get to talk about the very first card here. It is Brave Forge Bracers, and I have perhaps a controversial opinion on this card as to whether or not it's essential or not. I will say this, to me, this card is the least necessary of all of the legendaries in the set of Welcome to Rathe. This one is the least necessary for the class that it belongs to be good. Okay, now, does that make it unessential? Well, sort of, in my opinion, yes. I think it does. This is not an essential card for your deck to be good. Why is that? I said the Scabskin Leathers for Brute was essential. I said the Mask of Momentum for Ninja was essential. I said the Tectonic Plating for Guardian was essential. Why is this one non-essential? Well, let's take a look at what all those other ones do. Brute Scabskin Leathers allow you to, play a very strong attack action card and then follow that up if you have the resources by gaining an action point off of leathers, attacking for 5 with your romping club. So that's a very powerful kind of combo within the game of Flesh and Blood, or just within the archetype that Brute has. You can also do stuff with claws with that Scabskin Leathers. In Tectonic Plating for the Guardian class, you literally can use it just about every turn to discount an attack action that you're going to play next turn. And it's sort of this rolling effect where you start it and you can keep it rolling, keep gaining the discount each turn by paying for it. And that is a very, very powerful thing to be able to do, is discount your very expensive attack actions by 1. Allows you to do other stuff with your resources. And then you have the Mask of Momentum, which always threatens this like card draw, and it forces your opponent to block one of the 2 Kodachis or to just commit hard to whatever you play after both Kodachis. Otherwise, you just get free cards off of the Mask of Momentum constantly. And so all of those kind of highlight what that archetype wants to do. Brave Forge Bracers also does that. It says once per turn action, pay 1. Your next weapon attack this turn gains +1. Then it says activate this ability only if a weapon you control has hit this turn. Go again. So what does that mean? Well, essentially it means that the first attack that you play has to connect, and then you can pay a resource and preemptively give the next attack +1. The next weapon attack +1. And so you see this ability and you think, okay, there's some prerequisites that I have to meet, and this +1 is coming before the attack, so our opponent can more easily account for it. And so do you use this effect very much? Sort of like Mask of Momentum, you don't use this effect as much as you would like Tectonic Plating, where you could use that every turn, or Scabskin, where you can use that every turn. Furthermore, it's doing what Warrior wants to do, wherein it buffs its weapon, but it's doing it before you can do all your combat trick stuff. So, I mean, it's still a buff, and that is a very good thing, but it's not to the same extent as playing like a 1 resource attack reaction. So cards in your deck can easily sort of outclass the effect here. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing, right? It would be crazy, really, really, really good if this were like pay once per turn action, pay 1 as an attack reaction, add +1. That would be super sick. In fact, that would be like top of the line. The fact that this one is the least essential of all of those legendaries that we've talked about thus far is not a knock on Warrior in general. In fact, it's very hard to knock on Warrior because Warrior is so good. But this is my controversial statement of the series thus far. Brave Forge Bracers is non-essential to playing a good Warrior deck. Now, if you have it, you slap it on there every single time because 2 block is sick. It's just disgusting to be able to block 2, and a +1 every now and again is super solid, okay? But you can swap something else in place of it and still win a ton of games with Warrior. But you know what is essential? Refraction Bolters. Refraction Bolters, the common Warrior leg equipment, is essential to the deck and the archetype and the class Well, one, because it blocks for one, and that is like one of the very few leg equipments that does something that also blocks for one. And two, because it's a way to give your weapon go again when you don't draw into that. And that is a very powerful thing, because if you know anything about Dorinthia and anything about the Dawn Blade, you're trying to chain together 2 hits. And if you don't have a go again effect in your hand, that perhaps means you have a bunch of buffs in your hand, and being able to pop the Refraction Bolters after a block and then give that attack go again, and then use all those resources and cards in your hand to buff the second attack, means you're more likely to get a counter. And once you can get a token on Dawnblade, your opponent really has to try and remove that. Otherwise, things get really gross really fast. So Refraction Bolters, a common, is essential in my opinion for the archetype and for the class. You play this, I don't think you'd ever swap it. I don't know, maybe you'd swap it for Snapdragon Scalers if you wanted to play, oh, I don't know, like Snatch or Flock of the Featherwalkers. Maybe you'd swap it for that. But if you're playing Dorinthia, and if you're playing just like, I'm going to push Dawnblade a bunch, you run the Refraction Bolters, hands down. That brings us to the majestic cards in the class. Glint the Quicksilver is a wonderful card. Being able to play an attack reaction that costs 0 and gives your attack go again, plus it could draw you a card and replace itself, is just good. It's just plain good. You're going to play this probably 2 of, maybe 3 of if you're playing Constructed, just so that you can give go again when your opponent is expecting, or perhaps they're expecting. Give go again when your opponent's expecting the turn to be over, really, and possibly even draw a card off of this to replace itself, giving you more resources or more attack reactions at your disposal. This card is extremely worth it in your deck. Now, sometimes I do see people cutting like one of these and running like one less than necessary, and you can probably do that, but pitching blue is really good, and having a beneficial attack reaction that costs nothing, that defends for 3 and gives your weapon go again in the reaction phase is just generally just solid. So because it pitches blue and because it gives go again, all those reasons, I would put a full 3 of or 2 of in my deck, just because it's super, super solid. Also super solid, Steel Blade Supremacy. This card just wins games. Like, if you get a bunch of Steel Blade Supremacies, you should play Warrior, because this card is just absolutely good. It's just broken. It's not broken. I shouldn't say that. It's super solid. The fact that it just said, look, until the end of the turn, target weapon attack gains +2, and if it hits, you draw a card. Are you kidding? This cost 1. That's crazy. This cost 1. It makes your weapon attack for 5. That's what like Brute does. That's crazy. You play this, you're threatening both a 5 damage weapon pre like attack reactions or buffs, and you're threatening to draw into more attack reactions, into more Glint the Quicksilvers for go again, things like that. This card is super, super staple for the Warrior archetype. You run this if you're playing Dorinthia, hands down. Just like I said with Steel Blade Supremacy, Singing Steel Blade is definitely essential for any deck that you're playing Dorinthia. Dorinthia, you're on the board, this goes into the deck, because it just fetches you itself, or it fetches you a Glint, or it fetches you, I don't know, like a route, I guess you could fetch a route. It can fetch you any attack reaction at any point whenever you play it, and the flexibility therein is incredible. It makes the deck feel kind of like Katsu. It's really strange, because the fact that you're tutoring out exactly what you want, it really does make it feel like Katsu, like a combo sort of a style of play. Just imagine, okay, your opponent blocks exactly what you're attacking with, which is already kind of a scary proposition. You attack for 3 with Dawnblade, they block 3. You play Singing Steel Blade to give it +1. You go and fetch another Singing Steel Blade. You pay the resource cost, you play the Singing Steel Blade. The second one, you go and fetch a go again, like off of Glint the Quicksilver, and you give it go again and you draw a card. Like, that's so good. Heck, you play a Singing Steel Blade into Singing Steel Blade into like Route or into Overpower, or pick any 1 cost attack reaction. You can even go and fetch the 0 cost, like, what is it called? I blanked on the name. Iron Song response. You can go get Iron Song response and just give +3 over the top if they've blocked with a card from hand. It's so flexible that if you're playing Dorinthia, this is a shoe-in along with some of the other cards that I've mentioned. It's just worth it. Speaking of worth it is Iron Song Determination. I feel like I'm literally listing all of the cards in Warrior in Welcome to Rathe. I don't think I am listing all of the cards, but literally they made all of the supers and all of the majestics in this class worth it. And that is I think that's an intentional design choice. That's an aside, of course. Let's get back to Iron Song Determination. Iron Song Determination is super good, particularly in exactly Dorinthia, though you can play it in Kasai as well if you're playing Kasai Warrior, because you can give one of your Centauri Sabers Dominate and then Twinning Blade it. But that's another story for another time. Just talking about Welcome to Rathe and you're playing Dorinthia, this one fits nicely in Dorinthia because you just give your weapon the entire turn for both attacks that you make with it. You give it Dominate and +1, and the buff and the Dominate keywords stick around through the turn, which makes it really tough to deal with your Go Tall strategy if you're playing Go Tall. So it's another shoe-in. My goodness, there's so many. Okay, really quick aside about Overpower. Overpower, it seems to be run fairly consistently in Dorinthia, particularly in Blitz, in the red and the blue variants. Because it just goes like really hard over the top. It's hard to pay for unless you've got a blue in hand and the Overpower, but when you slam a red Overpower by pitching like a blue card, you're probably just going to straight up go over the top and your opponent's not going to have anything really to deal with that, plus the over the top damage. Like what you start with, even if it's just 3, your opponent blocks 3 and you play Overpower, they're going to need a 4-cost defense reaction. And so it's pretty gross. It's pretty disgusting. This one's on the borderline for me of being essential. You don't have to run it. In fact, I didn't start running it until very recently, but I think that's the case with many people, is they didn't start running it until very recently. So maybe that shows us that it is more essential now that people are adding it, or maybe it shows us that it's going to be added for a little while and then cut for other things. Steelblade Shunt is a must, though I will say you run a couple of Steelblade Shunts because you can just win the game on the spot by using Steelblade Shunt against like a Kadachi or a Romping Club or anything like that. It's just a good defense reaction. The fact that the red one blocks 6 and the blue one blocks 4, like a standard blue, or a standard defense reaction, I should say. The yellow one blocks 5. Like all of those are great numbers. It's like it's weird that they gave Warrior these middling numbers like this, which are higher than most defense reactions. And in fact, it's kind of strange that Guardian got defense reactions like blocking 5, 6, and 7, something like that. And here's Warrior just very, very close to that same mark. It's kind of interesting that they gave them this. It's a very powerful card, and you should definitely run one. Warrior's Valor is like a 9 of across the board. Maybe you run the red and the yellow only and skip the blue, but I personally run all 9 of them, or all 6 of them, depending on what format that you're playing in. It is the best way to give your weapon go again in this format, in this set, I should say. Because it gives a buff and then it threatens your opponent by saying, hey, if you don't all the way block this, including whatever I'm going to have coming from hand during the reaction step, we're just going to go again. We're just going to, attack you again with our sword. So you slam this one. I didn't realize this at first, how good this card was, because I wanted an unconditional go again, but the conditional nature of this isn't even that bad, and the fact that you're only paying 1 for this instead of 2 for the one we're going to talk about later for the unconditional go again makes this one a great card. Iron Song Response is a good attack reaction. It costs nothing. It can only be played if your opponent blocks with a card from hand. If they don't block with a card from hand, then you can't actually play this, and so it's a little weird, but you can run the blue and you can pitch the blue to pay for costs of other things, and then you run the red and you get the +3, and it's pretty solid. Stroke of Foresight is like a mini Seeing Steelblade in the fact that it doesn't tutor for you, but it does give you the top card of your deck and allow you to choose these cards from your hand, pick one of them, put it on top or put it on bottom, and it's like cycling before we had Azalea in the sense that like you could like opt basically every turn by flipping over your arsenal. Stroke of Foresight is kind of like that, in that you're taking a card into your hand and then either putting a card on the bottom of your deck. It could be the different card, it could be the same card, putting a card on top of your deck. It's a better opt, is what I'm trying to say. And Stroke of Foresight gives you that plus a buff for the cost of 1. You run a lot of these in your deck, definitely all the reds, and maybe you run all the reds and yellows. I don't know if you run the blue necessarily, but you could. It's a great card. It's a great attack reaction. Driving Blade is fantastic if you can pay for it. The unconditional go again and the +3 on the red version for 2 is super cool, super solid. I do think that I originally liked Driving Blade more than I liked Warrior's Valor, and then I played more Warrior's Valor, and I was like, just kidding. I love having more resources to go over the top and then just guarantee the go again that way. And so that, for me, is the list of essential cards. Oh my god, it's like most of the... I don't want to say they're all essential. I guess that's literally what I'm saying. They're all so good, it's like, why would you not include these cards in your deck? They're all so incredibly good. Warrior has it really good, and if you really like Warrior, you're having the time of your life right now. I'm really curious to see what Monarch brings to the table if they continue to give Warrior just powerful cards. Now, I don't know if they're actually going to give class cards to Warrior, but if they give generic cards that Warrior can access, or Shadow, or light cards that Warrior can access that are really good, it's just going to be just a continual like embarrassment of riches for the class. So many good cards. So many cards that you can put into the deck that just do absolute work that it's hard not to talk about all of them. So that's what I've got for you. If you enjoyed this, if you learned something, if you just liked hearing me talk about all the, powerful Warrior cards, hit a like and a subscribe. We are slowly, we're actually really quickly climbing this number above me higher and higher, and I'm very thankful for you guys for supporting the channel that way. If you want to see, by the way, the other classes in Welcome to Rathe, like Brute, Guardian, Ninja, if you want to see those videos, make sure to hit the little links in the description and the little buttons that have popped up as the videos played over here. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.